Namaste. A warm welcome to all the Satsangis today to this wonderful Monday evening. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om. One of the common models of life is life itself is a journey. When life is a journey, there are there is a starting point, there is a beginning, and there is a destination, and there is a path. Now, the paths are multiple between the beginning and the destination, the start and the end of the journey. So, when there are multiple paths to choose from, which path do we take? Which path do I take? That's the question each one of us must pose on ourselves, for ourselves, because all the paths are relative. What is easy for me may be difficult for the other person. And what is easy for the other person may be difficult for me. As the wonderful saying goes, it may be my cup of tea or it may not be my cup of tea. But to cater to each and every individual of different mindsets, of different beliefs, different, multiple, innumerable paths are available for each one of us to choose from, depending on our own mental inclinations and packages. For example, okay, so before we get there, let's see the fundamental definition. Now, whether it's a transactional world or the spiritual world, life is still a journey. Now, in the transactional world, what is the difference, therefore, between the two journeys, the journey that we undertake in the world and our spiritual journey, the transactional journey and the spiritual journey? Um, if we simplify it, now the transactional journey has different destinations or goals. And therefore, each one of us also may have a different starting point. So if I take my journey in this life from the transactional perspective, from the perspective of what I want to achieve in the world, the starting point for me, the start of the journey for me is the same, but the destination is different. There are many, many destinations in my worldly journey, but the starting point is the same. What is the starting point? The point at which I am right now. And what is the destination, goal, where I want to go? Now, we all know that if I achieve one goal in the transactional world, I will not be satisfied and I will want to achieve one more goal. Therefore, there are many, many ending points to the journey, but the starting point remains the same. Whereas in the spiritual journey, it is quite the reverse. The destination is the same for all of us. What is that? Self realization, or freedom from suffering, or bliss, or peace, whatever we may call it. Everyone wants freedom to overcome the limitation. The destination is the same for everybody, whereas the starting point is different for each one of us. How do we know this? Take, for example, our own case. For some people, karma yoga or karma marga, the path of karma, will appeal to them. For some people, the path of bhakti will appeal. For some other people, the path of meditation, yoga. And for some other people, the path of jnana. Now, is there a grading between all these paths? Not really. All of them are equally important. And why are these four paths available? These four paths are given to help the seeker, each seeker, to choose based on his or her psychological tendencies. For a person who has high active energy, if we ask him or her to sit and meditate, he or she will find it extremely difficult, isn't it? For such a person, the path of action is an easy way, a simple way. And that person will naturally choose the path of action, undoubtedly. Now, for a person who is quiet, who wants to not be very active, for such a person, the path of meditation, yoga, introspection, that path is simple. For a person who wants to be in love, in ecstasy, the path of bhakti or devotion is a simple way, because that person's energetic expression is love, compassion, joy. And where do we find all those? In the path of bhakti. Therefore, we see the spiritual journey is not opposite, but quite complementary to the transactional or the worldly journey. In simple terms, of course, we can argue about it, but to put it in simple terms, the journey in the world of what the person wants to achieve has is individual, is a single starting point, but many, many destinations. Whereas the spiritual journey is one destination, that of self realization, but many, many starting points. And because whether the destination is different, many, or the starting point is many, there is one thing common in both the journeys. That is, there are innumerable paths to, to go from where I am to where I want to be, isn't it? In the transactional world also, there are innumerable paths. I can choose engineering, I can choose law, I can choose commerce, I can choose architecture, I can choose business, or I can choose art. any number of things to express to where I want to be, to what in whatever I want to achieve. So is the case with the spiritual journey. I can choose bhakti, I can choose karma, I can choose rajamarga, the path of meditation or kriya, or I can choose jnana marga or atma vichara. Given that, now we want to focus on what is the spiritual journey and how simple can it be. Now, when we take a journey, any journey, whether it's transactional or spiritual, is the journey without any obstacles, experience says every journey has some obstacle or the other. There are many, many obstacles that we would have encountered in any of the journeys that we have taken so far, undertaken so far. Now, the question is obstacles are present, can't be avoided. It is not under our control. Do we agree? Now, the real trick is how do I make the journey simple and enjoyable in spite of the obstacles? Obstacles cannot be avoided, whether it's a transactional journey or a spiritual journey. In the spiritual journey, what is the obstacle? Main distraction of the mind. Transactional journey, also it's a distraction from the goal that we want to achieve. We are attracted, we are diverted into multiple directions. Now, in spite of the obstacle, how do I make the journey enjoyable and simple? That is the simple path. Otherwise, all journeys are complex. No doubt about it. There will be some difficulty or the other that we face. Hmm? So, if you see, for example, a student studying for an exam, is the path straightforward? No. He has the obstacles while preparing for the exam. But is there a way to make it simple? Yes. If one is methodical or if he has found a way to prepare this, to cover the syllabus in a certain way, timely manner, by either reading or writing notes or any which way that he finds it easy. Now, in spite of all those obstacles, the obstacles can be overcome and the journey, the path to the exam from the preparation should be easy. Not easy, rather simple. So far, so good. Now, the simple path is this. The definition of a simple path is this. There are twists and turns. There are obstacles in every path. Twists and turns, bends cannot be avoided. Ups and downs cannot be avoided. Obstacles cannot be avoided. In spite of the obstacles, in spite of the twists and turns, in spite of the ups and downs, how to make the journey enjoyable and at the same time reach our destination is the simple path. Otherwise, if we don't, if we are not aware of this definition, this particular aspect of simple path, the chances are that on our journey, we will undertake the journey and probably we going round and round with a lot of activity and movement, but getting not making much progress. It's like moving round and round at the same place. Hmm? So, in the spiritual journey, there are two schools of thoughts. One is life is a journey from, and then the other is life in Jnana, it is not a journey. There is no journey at all in life. The journey is because I am not aware of who I am. That's another uh, point of view that is undertaken. But for most of us, journey is inevitable. Why? Because the very fact that I have self realization or bliss or peace as a goal automatically means that right now, today, I am not self realized. I am not peaceful. I am not happy. The position that I am in today is limited, and I want to grow out of this limitation into infinitude, into peace, into bliss. Why so? The journey is as long as I am body conscious, as long as I identify with this body, even in spirituality, journey is inevitable. That is why the peace chant of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O Lord, lead me from untruth to truth. Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. From ignorance to knowledge, wisdom. Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. From mortality to immortality. This shloka sums it all. For whom is this journey from Asat to Sat, from Tamas to Jyoti, from Mrityu to Amritatva? It's for anyone who is identified with the personality or the body consciousness. Now let us put our hands on our heart and ask ourselves, am I not body conscious? If the answer is yes, then the journey is inevitable. I am in untruth and I have to move towards truth. Asatoma Sadgamaya. I am in ignorance and I have to move towards wisdom. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. I am limited, therefore I am born, and therefore I have death as this body mind complex. Therefore, I have to move from death, mortality to immortality, deathlessness. Now, where does this come from? The journey comes from actually the working of the mind. In Kannada, they say manascheshte, the cunningness or the oscillation of the mind. Hmm? So, when as long as we have mind, Yoga Shastra puts it very beautifully. Patanjali Yoga Sutra puts it very beautifully. One of the most common problems that all of us have is that our mind is oscillating. Chanchala. Manas is chanchala. It is not stable. It jumps from one point to another, from one thought to another. Today they say the extent of concentration for a normal human being is hardly a few minutes, 3 to 4 minutes. A person is able to focus on a task just for about 3 to 4 minutes. After that, the person will need a break. In the professional offices, what is the most common break? A coffee break or a smoking break. So every half an hour, 1 hour, people take a break. Why? They say, I'm stressed, I have to leave, but I have to take a break. But what is the reality? The attention span has ended in that time. I am not able to focus anymore after that, so I need a break. The mind keeps jumping, no longer is one pointed, jumps from that activity to another. It needs a break. Therefore, what does yoga say? It says yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is the cessation of thoughts in the mind. Now, when we have, what is the use of cessation, of such a cessation of thought? Is it a circus? Is it a fancy that I have to stop the thoughts? Now, an obvious outcome of the cessation of the thoughts is calmness, peace, quietude. But then Patanjali gives a secret here in the very next stanza, in the very next shloka, aphorism. He says, Tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. Tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. Now, the seer, drashtuhu, the seer, tada, then, swarupe avasthanam, is established in his true nature, swarupa. Now, this is the ultimate benefit of cessation of thoughts. Not, of course, byproducts are calmness, quietness, some kind of peace, happiness. But the ultimate benefit and the result is tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. Only a silent mind can be established in the self. Even if one thought is there, the mind is away from the self. Patanjali Maharshi has told this soon after Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. The benefit of Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Let's check it out. If there are a few thoughts in the mind, is there clarity? Is there silence? No. When there is no silence, where is the mind? It is it is going towards chasing the thoughts. When it's chasing the thoughts, what does it mean? What does chasing the thoughts means? It's chasing the objects that the thoughts point to. That means it's chasing the world. How can such a mind be established in its own true nature, Swarupa Avasthanam? Not possible, isn't it? When the mind is disturbed, it is impossible for the mind to be established in its own true nature. What is the true nature of the mind? The self only, nothing else. What is the true nature of the body? Again, the self. What is the true nature of the breath? Self only. What is the true nature of the object that is seen? Drashtu, it is the seer, the self only. So, how does the subject object merge with each other? Under what condition? Only and only when the mind is silent. As long as there is even a single thought, there is a separation between the subject and the object, between the seer and the seen. And therefore, there is going to be activity. Activity of the seer to possess the seen or the object. Hmm? Now, Patanjali doesn't stop there. If the silent mind is established in its true nature, tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. Then, if the mind is not silent, what is its what is its nature? He says, vritti sarupyam itaratra. Vritti sarupyam itaratra. That means itaratra under all other conditions. Under all other conditions means what? Under any other conditions where the mind is not silent, the mind takes the form of vritti, the thoughts. So the mind takes the form of any of the thoughts that comes in the mind. For example, when the mind, if I see a shirt in a show window of, in a display window of a shop as I walk on the road, hmm, and I like it, then immediately what does my mind say? Oh, it's such a nice shirt. I wish I can buy it. Let me go and ask what the price is. So this activity will start generating. So what has the mind become? Mind has taken the shape of the thought and eventually the shape of the desire, which is the shirt, object of desire, which is the shirt, isn't it? So whenever the mind is not silent, the mind takes the shape of the vrittis or the thoughts. Now, the important point is this: is the vritti or the thought single or multiple? Psychologists say in a day, on an average, a human being generates about 20,000 thoughts to about 40,000, anywhere in between 20,000 thoughts to 40,000 thoughts or 50,000 thoughts. So that means the mind is continuously changing like a chameleon, its own shape from one thought to another. And that is why the mind is called chanchala. In 24 hours, if we leave 8 hours for sleeping, where it's a thought free state, 16 hours. In 16 hours, on an average, 25 to 30,000 thoughts. Per minute, it'll have so many thoughts. That is why the mind is oscillating. It's compared with a jumping monkey, jumping from one thought to another. So when the thoughts are multiple and the mind is jumping from one to another, we need a method to train the mind. And that method is different for different people. For people who are highly energetic, action oriented, who have a lot of physical energy, action will calm the mind down. Work will calm the mind down. Any activity. For example, at home, I like to wash dishes. It calms me down. Otherwise, the physical energy blocks are very heavy. My wife always complains I spend too much time. But there is a benefit at that point of time. So, for a person who is who is joyful, who expresses joy and love, bhakti will calm his mind down from multiple thoughts to single thought. For a person who can directly work on the mind, remember action and bhakti are working, are tools. Action, we use the body. Bhakti, we use the mind, but indirectly, but we use the form of the Lord for bhakti, an object. So we use the visual aid to calm the mind down. Instead of looking at everything, we look at the form of our Ishta Devata, our beloved deity, so that the mind calms. It's an object meditation. For a person who can work on the energy, who has a lot of energy, has good control over the energy, then pranayama, which is Kriya Yoga, and the Raja Yoga, using the breath, can calm the mind down. For a person who is highly intellectual, then thinking of higher level concepts, ideas, theories, or even Atma Vichara will calm the mind down. So, which one is simple depends on each one of us. At the same time, in each path, whether it's karma, bhakti, jnana, or kriya, or Raja Yoga, each path can be difficult or made simple. And for this, I would like to take the help of Ramana Maharshi's Upadesha Saram to bring out the pointers that he has said, uh, to make to make each of these paths simple. Let's take Karma Yoga. Um, in Karma Yoga, the path of action itself, can be highly complicated or made simple. We all perform actions, and the best treatise on Karma Yoga that one can think of is Bhagavad Gita, the whole chapter on Karma Yoga, and the famous shloka Karmanyevadhikaraste Ma Phaleshu Kadachana Ma Karma Phala Heturbhu Ma Te Sangostva Karmani. So the first step of any action is to do an action for the result. And what does Sri Krishna say? Do the action, but don't do it for the result. Detach the action from the result. Be one pointed in the action. Don't split the mind between action and result. Otherwise, action will become incomplete. So that is the whole path of Karma Yoga. We can keep on elaborating on that. But since all of us are familiar with it, so to move from action for a goal to action detached from the goal is the path of Karma Yoga. Hmm? And what does Sri Ramana Maharshi say about this? In the very first section of Karma Yoga in Upadeshasaram, in the third shloka of Upadeshasaram, Ramana says, Ishwararpitam Nechayakritam Chitta Shodhakam Mukti Sadhakam. Whatever actions I do, simplest way to make it is to offer it to the Lord. Ishwararpitam Nechaya Kritam. Na Ichaya Kritam. Do it without a desire. Desire for what? Desire for the fruits of action. Offer all actions to the Lord. Chitta Shodhakam. How will it? It is a purifier of the mind. How does it purify the mind? Because I offer the actions to the Lord. And how do I view the results of such an action? Whatever comes to me, I treat it and I accept it as Ishvara Prasada, the gift or the blessing of the Lord, whatever result comes. So there are two things of first step to move from action to engage in action for a particular result. In the second step, engage in action detaching from the result. Karma Yoga, this is Karma Yoga. Nishkama Karma, that means actions without desire. There are two aspects. One is the action itself, offering the actions to the Lord. They say do action. Many people in the professional world, in management and leadership circles say, do action for the action's sake. No, in spirituality, Ramana is saying, do action for Ishvara's sake. Ishvararpitam, offer it to the Lord. Then the second part is also important. Every action is bound to give a result. The results may be in my favor or not be in my favor. So how do I see those results? What is my position with respect to the result? Prasada Buddhi. Whatever result comes out of such an action offered to Ishvara or the Lord, I accept that result as His blessing or His grace. Something is there in it for me, for my growth, even if it is not in my favor. If it is in my favor, I still accept it as His grace, as His prasada. So that is the way when we start acting with the idea of offering to the Lord and accepting the result as His prasada, then the path becomes simple. Now, that is as far as my benefit is concerned. It's a benefit to me. I act, and whatever comes to me, I receive it as the Lord's grace or prasada. Is that all? It is nishkama. There is desirelessness in action. Now, the next step, Ramana shows that there can be love and compassion in action. First, I must achieve desirelessness in action. Only then I can experience love and compassion in action. How? Ramana says in the next sloka, Jagata Ishadhi Yukta Sevanam Ashtamurti Bhrag Deva Pujanam. Jagata Ishadhi Yukta Sevanam. In the world, offering all the actions in the service to the Lord. The mind is offered as a service to the Lord. Sevanam Ashtamurti Bhrag. To the eight forms, seeing the world as the eight forms of the Lord, Ashtamurti. What are the eight forms of the Lord? The Panchabhutas, the five elements, they are the five forms. What is the earth? What is the fire? What is the water? What is air and space? They are all forms of Ishvara, the creator. Ashtamurti Bhrag. To see Ishvara in these Panchabhutas, five, three more to make up eight. It's the mind, the intellect, and consciousness or the self. Hmm? The sun, intellect, moon, mind, and Ishvara, consciousness. Without consciousness, I cannot act. I am not alive. The individual consciousness, the reflected consciousness in me. So these are the eight forms of the Lord. The individual consciousness, the mind to pay attention to, the intellect to think and decide, and the Panchabhutas. Which means what? What are the Panchabhutas in effect? The entire world, the world, the entire world of objects, all of creation is the Panchabhutas. It is the it is the combination of the five elements in different proportions that constitute all objects in the world. So Ashtamurti Bhrit Deva Pujanam. That means I see the Lord in all the eight elements of the world. I see the Lord in all the objects of the world. When I keep seeing the Lord in all the objects of the world, what is the nature of my action? What else can that be? What else can such an action be except a flow of love and compassion? Because every object I am seeing Ishvara in the Panchabhutas, in the thoughts, in the emotions, and in the reflected consciousness. So within me, I am seeing Ishvara. Outside in the Panchabhutas, I am also seeing Ishvara. So there is a flow of action from the individual to the world. And that there can be no better way to serve the world than to see the Lord in every object of the world, in every part of the manifested world. What else is the manifested world apart from the manifestation of the Lord Himself in the objects of the world? Ishvara appears as the mountain. Ishvara appears as mud. Ishvara appears as the river. Ishvara appears as the cloud. Ishvara appears as the lake. Ishvara also appears as you and me. He appears as the lion, the tiger, the elephant, the snake, the cow, the milk, the honey. So when I start seeing Ishvara there, Ashtamurti Brug, Deva Pujanam, that is the best form of puja. That means action becomes worship. Worship to whom? Worship to the Lord. So therefore, we have seen in action there is desire when there is kamya karma. In action there is desirelessness when there is nishkama karma. In action there is love and compassion when action becomes a worship to the Lord. Same action, different viewpoints, different levels of maturity. It can either be action with desire, desirelessness action, or an action itself can be a worship. Just to summarize, in the path of karma, if we follow this, move step by step, if you have already passed the first step, second step, and third step, the path to karma yoga becomes simple and it becomes a path for chitta shodakam, mukti sadakam, purification of the mind leading to liberation. Then similarly, is bhakti also, can bhakti be simple? Yes. Bhakti also can be simple. What does Ramana say? Ajya dharaya shrota samam sarala chintanam viralatah param. When there is a flow of thought like a simple stream, ajya dharaya, like the flow of ghee, shrota samam, like the flow of river, sarala chintanam vilalatah param, like the flow, it can be actually the broken, from moving from broken thoughts to continuous thoughts is the supreme form of bhakti. So when I think of the Lord, if I want to express joy and love, then how do I think of the Lord? Like pouring ghee into the lamp, a continuous stream without a break, or like the flow of river. These two have a different connotation. Flow of ghee is like one simple stream, continuous stream without a break. Flow of water, what is the nature of water? It will make its way into its destination. All rivers flow and merge into ocean. But along the way, along the path of the river, how many rocks and boulders and some huge trees does the river encounter? So many of them. What does the river do? The water do? It will go around these obstacles and finally find its way to the destination. So there are two requirements for bhakti. One is a continuous flow. That means the flow of thought must be continuous. Second is like the river flow, water flow. There must be determination. There will be obstacles. You must jump over the obstacle or go around the obstacle, keeping the destination in mind. Ajyadharaya shrotasa samam. Like the flow of ghee or like the running water. Flow of ghee is constant. Flow of water is varied, but it overcomes the obstacles. It is determined to reach the ocean. Similarly, our mind must be determined to stay with the name of the Lord. At the same time, the flow, the Nama Japa or the flow must be smooth like the flow of ghee. Both the requirements are needed for bhakti. If we follow this, then it will be a simple path. Initially, there will be broken paths. There will be broken thoughts. We'll think of the Lord, and then suddenly there will be a break. Achieve the constant, regular flow of thoughts. At the same time, simultaneously be determined so that you don't give up half halfway through. Sorry, like the flow of the river. So much for bhakti. It's given in detail, but we will move on to even the Raja Yoga, the mind control. In the mind control, there are two aspects that Ramana says, Manolaya and Manonasha. In the 13th shloka of Upadeshasaram, Ramana Maharshi says, Laya Vinashane Ubhayarodhane Layagatam Punah Bhavati Nomratam. Laya Vinashane. There are two ways to the mind, Laya and Nasha. Laya Vinashane, Ubhaya Rodhane. Laya Gatam Punaha. That which is the mind that is suspended, Laya. Mind under suspension will rise again. Laya Gatam Punaha. Bhavati Nomritam. But the mind that is destroyed will never rise again. So these two parts, if we follow this, that means what is the order? First, in the meditative path, in Raja Yoga, Ramana says, first attempt Manolaya. Don't attempt Manonasha in the beginning. It will be a very arduous path. That is why in the shloka itself, it says Laya Vinashane. The shloka doesn't say Vinashane Laya. Laya, first attempt the suspension of the mind. Suspension of the mind is temporary. How do we attempt the suspension of the mind, achieve the suspension of the mind? Through any of the yogic practices, all the 8 limbs of yoga, especially asana and pranayama. These are very useful for getting the mind into suspension. What does suspension mean? Temporarily, the thoughts cease to flow. There is silence. As long as the effect of pranayama is there, the mind is silent. When the effect of pranayama vanishes, the thoughts rise again in the mind. So, what does Ramana say how to achieve this? Even the technology Ramana gives. What does Ramana say? Prana bandhanat leena manasam ekachintanat nashametyadaha. Prana bandhanat leena manasam. The Manolaya, Leena Manasam, is achieved by Prana Bandhanat, by control of prana, slow movement of prana or holding the breath. Of course, we need uh, an expert guide to supervise and teach us, under whose supervision we can perform this. Prana Bandhana, Leena Manasam. So the suspension of the mind, temporary cessation of the mind, can be achieved through pranayama. Prana Bandhanat, Leena Manasam. But how is the cessation of the mind or the destruction of the mind achieved? In the very next line, it says, Ekachintanat nashametyadaha. When the mind is silent, even under suspension, then it must be focused on just one thought. What is that? Thought of the self, its own true nature. Then what happens? The mind will get destroyed. How does this happen? How does this happen? When the mind is thinking of the objects, the mind flows outward. And when doing the pranayama, the mind gets silent. That means the outward flow of the thoughts stop towards the world or object stop. Then what happens if the mind turns itself and pays attention to the self? From outward focus to inward attention, then what is the nature of the self? The self is formless. The self is attributeless. So when the mind turns its attention to the self, when it is silent, what is going to happen? It does not find any form. It does not find any attribute or a quality to pay attention to. So immediately it rests. And that is the nature of the self, the true nature of the mind that is merged in the self. So a silent mind can be achieved. The manolaya can be achieved by controlling the breath temporarily. But when the mind gets into such a silence, turning it inward and paying attention to the formless attribute self will actually merge the mind in the self. In other words, the mind will get destroyed. So, Ekachintanath is the technology for destruction of the mind. Prana Bandhanath is the technology for cessation of the mind. This is not concentration. That is why first, in concentration, what happens? There are multiple thoughts and you want to focus on one thought. There is always a struggle of one thought over multiple thoughts. It will lead to headache. But what is the technology of yoga and Ramana Maharshi that who is pointing out? First attempt Manolaya through pranayama. After Manolaya is achieved, turn the mind inwards to the self. It will lead to Manonasha. Then, of course, is the Atma Vichara, which is the true nature of the self. So, in order to understand this Atma Vichara principle, Ramana Maharshi says, Manasam tu kim naiva manasam. What does he say? What is the mind? There is no mind without any thoughts. So if you understand the root of the mind is the thought, the single thought, the I thought, and pay attention to the I thought. Who is this I thought? Who am I? That is the Atma Vichara. In the 18th shloka of Upadeshasaram, Ramana Maharshi says, Vrittayastvaham vrittimashhritaha vrittayo mano vidyaham manaha. That means vrittayastvaham. What is the mind? Mind is nothing but a bundle of thought, vrittis. Vritta yastva aham. Aham here is the mind, I. I identified with the mind is nothing but the bundle of thoughts. Vrittimashritaha. All these thoughts, the multiple thoughts, they have their ashraya or their locus in aham vritti, the I thought. Aham vritti, the I thought. Vrittayo mano vidyayaham manaha. Without this I thought, what is the mind? There is no mind. The mind is nothing but the I thought. Mind is nothing but the bundle of thoughts, but all the bundles of thoughts are supported by only one thought, which is the I thought, and therefore the mind is nothing but the I thought. So, what is the simpler way to deal with 20,000 to 40,000 thoughts in a day, or to deal with one single I thought? Which is easier to attack? You will need every day, you will need 20,000 bullets to fire at 20,000 thoughts, provided our aim is so perfect. But we will need only one bullet to fire at one thought, which is the I thought. See, even in Atma Vichara, if we are not careful, the Jnana Marga or Atma Vichara can be complex. But if we follow the path, a sequence of steps as outlined in the scriptures and by sages like Ramana Maharshi, for example, in this very text, Upadesha Saram, then Atma Vichara also can be a simple path. So, what is Ramana saying? The mind is nothing but the bundle of thoughts, and all the innumerable thoughts, all the hundreds of thousands of thoughts have their root thought in I thought. The foundation of all these thoughts is I thought. So, without the I thought, what is the mind? No mind. That's all. And therefore, with all the bundle of thoughts, that's where all the variety comes, isn't it? All the variety comes with multiple thoughts. If there's a single thought, it is no variety, single. So how do we see the variety? Ramana says in the next shloka, Veshahanatah swatma darshanam, Isha darshanam swatma rupatah. Now, the difference between all of these is in the Vesha, the the outer covering. Vesha means the mask, the outer covering or the mask, and the intellect. So all of us differ only in the appearance and intellect. Look at it practically. You and me, we all have the same heart. We have the same lungs. We have the same type of blood flowing. The blood flow, limbs, two limbs, eyes, nose, ears. But what is the difference? Only in the appearance, the Vesha. And then the intellect, the way you think and the way I think are different. But in a sense, your heartbeat is not different from my heartbeat. Your blood flow is not different from my blood flow. The eyes are not different from my eyes. Your eyes can see, my eyes can see. But the appearance is only different and the way of thinking is different. So, Veshahanataha, when we when we remove, when we step beyond, when we go inside the appearance, when we take away the appearance, then what is seen? What is seen is first actually chitta, the consciousness, atmanaha. Hmm? All right. Then we get the chitta darshan, we are able to see the consciousness, and once we see the consciousness, we see the truth. Tattva darshanam. We see the truth. Hmm? So there is also a shloka that says Atma darshanam, Brahma darshanam, Brahma darshanam, Satya darshanam. First step is to see the self by going beyond the appearance. Atma darshanam. When I see myself, then what I see outside is everything is Brahman, Brahma darshanam. I can see the Lord. And when I see the Lord in everything and every being, Tattva darshanam, Satya darshanam, I see the truth. So if we follow the step-by-step procedure or the practice, even in Atma Vichara, first go inwards to recognize the self. From the position of the self, see the world, you will be able to see the Lord. And when we see the Lord in everything and everyone, I will be seeing the truth, isn't it? Hmm? So, whether it's karma, whether it's bhakti, whether it's dhyana yoga or gnana yoga, every path has an obstacle. And each of these paths are made simple, can be made simple in spite of the obstacle. And that's where the wisdom of the sages, the scriptures, come to our rescue. The, there are twists, there are turns, there are ups and there are downs. Still, we can have a simple path to our goal of self-realization. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Sadguru Devaya Namah. Thank you for your patient listening.